How does REANIMAL play on the Claw 8 and the Switch 2? So I'm just going to launch the game at the same time on both. I mean, we are already in the game on the Switch 2 and I can just press A to start. But let's just wait for the Claw 8. So now we are in the game and I'm just going to check the settings before I start playing. So let's see which settings we are using on the Claw 8. So on the Claw 8 I'm using borderless 1280 by 800. Frame limit I will just keep it unlimited to see what we get on the Claw 8. Advanced settings, I'm basically using high for everything and TAA for anti-aliasing. Let's go ahead and start playing. On the Switch 2, we don't really get any graphic settings. Well, actually we get performance or quality, but I'm just gonna use the performance as I prefer having more FPS. By the way, I've already played this game and it's absolutely amazing. You know, if you're into like Little Nightmares, you know, that kind of games, then definitely play this. It's one of the best. I would say it's even better than Little Nightmares 3, and I think it's made by the same studio. But anyways, let's go ahead and start playing and see, you know, which handheld is better for this game. Oh wow, and look at that, the Nintendo Switch 2 loads the game up first, and the main reason I think is because on the Claw 8 it's pre-compiling the shaders, and that's just one of the things you have to deal with when you're using PC handhelds. In this beginning section with the fog and the brightness at 100%, it's not that bad. It's okay. If I move, well, I can't really move the camera, so let me go ahead and drive around for a bit. The resolution and the colors and the anti-aliasing, it looks okay. Now that the Claw 8 version has been loaded, let's go ahead and see how this one looks. I can see that it seems to be a bit smoother because I think it's got more FPS. Now I'm not sure why it's telling me to hold W because I am playing on the controller. But yeah, I can definitely see that it's much smoother on the Claw 8. Now let me drive for a bit to the next point. In terms of the FPS, I'm getting just under 60 FPS, as you guys can see on the top left here. So just under 60 FPS on the Claw 8. And on the Nintendo Switch 2, we don't have FPS counter. However, I can tell that it's not as smooth as the Claw 8. However, when you are playing these games on the Switch 2, and especially since there is no FPS counter, you sort of start to forget, you know, what FPS you're playing at. If you're used to playing at 60 FPS, then in the beginning, yeah, you're gonna see the difference. However, once you start getting used to 30 FPS, it's not gonna make much of a difference, to be honest with you guys. So as long as the game is good and you're enjoying it, that's the main thing. It's not always about FPS, because in the beginning the only thing I cared about was FPS, but then I realized that, you know what, let me just enjoy the game, because it's not always about how smooth the game is, but it's actually how good the game is. So in this scene, let's just have a look at the graphics and see what the game looks like. Now the game is supposed to be foggy, so I'm just gonna see, you know, how the fog and the graphics and the anti-aliasing and the resolution looks like, and then we can compare it to the Claw 8. So let's just go ahead into the same area on the Claw 8 and see what happens. The game does look a bit darker on the Claw 8. Let me just turn up the brightness in case that's the reason. So it's about 80%. I think it does look a bit better on the Claw 8, and it does feel a bit smoother on the Claw 8. However, we are not getting a locked 60 FPS. It seems to be dipping below even at 800p. So this is quite a demanding game to play. And now we are in the same scene as before. And it looks quite good actually. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the screens side by side and see which one looks better. So now we're in the same position on both. And there isn't a massive difference between the two. However, I can see that the game is a little bit smoother on the Claw 8. And I think it's because maybe this game is running at around 40 FPS on the Switch 2, because I don't think it's running at 60 FPS. In terms of the resolution, both of them look completely fine. They're both just as sharp with the same amount of resolution from what I can tell. Keep in mind that I'm running this game at 800p on the Claw 8, so obviously it will be sharper if I play it at 1200p, which is the native resolution on the Claw 8. So now we are in the exact same scene, in the exact same spot in the game, and there isn't that much of a difference, to be honest with you guys. It looks just as good on both. If I move the camera around for a bit, it's definitely much smoother on the Claw 8. And I think the graphics are also a little bit better in terms of the colors on the Claw 8. On the Switch 2 it does look a bit washed out. But I think if you are not comparing these two handhelds side by side, you can enjoy the game on both. So I think it's not going to matter much in terms of, you know, which platform you are playing the game on. Personally, I played most of the game on the Switch 2 and I had a really good time. So, you know, regardless of which platform you play the game on, you are going to have a really good time. So, what do I think? Which handheld is better to play this game on? I think REANIMAL is just as good on the Switch 2 and the Claw 8. It's all a matter of preference. It's the same game on both devices. It all comes down to, you know, which handheld you prefer using. If you only have the Switch 2, obviously play it on the Switch 2. If you only have the Claw 8, play it on the Claw 8. Don't worry too much about, you know, Switch 2 being better than the Claw 8 or the Claw 8 being better than the Switch 2. They're both equally good in their own regard. That's it for this video, guys. So make sure you like, subscribe and comment down below and let me know what you think is better, Switch 2 or the Claw 8. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.